I should ride single file because if not, cars will hit me and that would make it my fault. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I got a ticket for riding two abreast, which is not against the law in the state of California. In this video, I'm going to tell you what the law actually is, how I handled it, how I should have handled it, and the whole court process in general. My bike advocacy content, as always, is sponsored by Bike Legal. They're cycling accident attorneys. Do not call them if you get a bullshit ticket. Only I get to do that. Do call them if you're hit by a car or something along those lines and you take care of yourself for something real. So as you can see, I'm not dressed for training today. We're going to court. For this one, we're going to return to the scene of the crime. Sorry, the alleged crime. Alleged. So if you're local in the LA area, you probably recognize Piuma Canyon. That's where we are right now. And that was where I was stopped. I was riding with a friend, had a late start, was kind of stressed out, was really looking forward to a nice chill ride, when a sheriff's deputy came up behind me and said, "You know, it's against the law to ride two abreast." In that moment, I had a decision to make because I know it's not against the law to ride two abreast. But of course, what the officer wants is for you to say, "Sorry, officer, I'll go single file," and you ride single file, and he moves on with his day. It could have gone that way. But here's the problem with that version. This one is empty canyon roads. There's almost no traffic going through here. So this is a perfectly safe place for cyclists to ride two abreast. I ride here all the time. My friends ride here all the time. My Fondo goes through these canyons. To the inevitable commenters saying that I should get out of the way, I wasn't in the way. There were exactly 0 cars behind me when the officer pulled up. And on these roads, if a car does come up behind me and I'm riding side by side with a friend, we'll single file and let him pass when it's safe. I'm going to say that no one has ever been stuck behind me on a training ride for more than 30 seconds. I don't want to give him permission to bother other cyclists or validate his belief in that law. The other problem with letting it go is that the US is the only country where pedestrian and cyclist deaths are increasing in the last few years. Odds are, if you ride a bike, you know someone who was killed or hurt or close to it. Now that's caused by a lot of things. The speed of cars, the size of vehicles, distracted driving. The biggest cause of cyclist and pedestrian deaths would be the lack of bike lanes, the lack of space for bicycles, which leads to a pervasive view, especially in America, that roads are for cars and other people are in the way on what is in reality a public space. People should be able to push strollers, walk dogs, ride bikes, and drive cars safely. But what definitely doesn't help the traffic violence in America are law enforcement agencies who don't know the laws or don't care. I've had a couple close calls over the years around here from people speeding, texting, probably drunk, whatever. I once had a dude drive up right next to me on a cliff and just start moving right, pushing me towards the edge. He wasn't trying to pass, it was just a straight road. He could have passed if he wanted, but he drove my speed and just inched right until I was in the dirt and had to put a foot down. I got his plates, I called the police. They wouldn't even let me report it. Like threatening another person with murder, running them off a cliff for sport isn't a crime. So now I'm realizing that if I get killed in one of these canyons by some texting asshole, this is the officer who's gonna write the report? He's just gonna say, well, that guy shouldn't have been there, and my death goes unpunished. Fuck that. This happens too much in America. What hope do we have if the police don't even know the laws? So he's on his motorcycle next to me saying it's against the law to ride side by side, and I say, "I'm sorry, officer, that's not the law." At which point, he aggressively steers me into the dirt and says, "Well, let's look it up." Now, I appreciate police in general. It's a sacred thing to put yourself in harm's way to protect others. I'll try not to hold this incident against police in general, same as I hope that motorists and police don't blame me if they see another cyclist doing something dangerous or inconsiderate. So I don't want to be the guy who pulls out a camera when the cop stops him. I really didn't want to deal with this. I don't want a ticket. I don't want to go to court. I don't want the rage clicks I know this video is going to get. But he said a lot of weird stuff. At one point he offered to take his vest off. It was kind of bizarre. It was super uncomfortable. This is LA Sheriff's Department, Malibu, Lost Hills. Literally, this is stay out of Malibu, Lebowski. So then he said something that crossed the line for me, and I asked him to repeat it on camera.
I should ride single file because if not, cars will hit me and that would make it my fault. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I was really hoping it wouldn't go this way. I don't want to go to the internet and embarrass a public servant, but if you're going to insist on it, fine. Now I'm going to spare you from the whole 7 minutes of this video, except to tell you that in that whole time, 2 cars pass. So this is a traffic stop for a not law to hypothetically remove a short inconvenience for 2 people. Finally, he did find the code, and I was like, oh good, this is over. But then he chose a very bizarre interpretation of the code that would make him still right.
Okay, so vehicle code section states that People who ride bikes must ride as close to the right side of the road as practicable, except under the following conditions: when passing, preparing for a left turn, avoiding hazards in the lane too narrow to share, or for approaching a place where a right is authorized. So there's the vehicle code section. How do you interpret that?
Does it say anything about side by side?
It says it's close to the right.
As
So that would be the guy on the right is correctly traversing the roadway. The guy on the left is not, because he's not as close to the right side of the road.
Yeah, that's not. That's
Well, I mean, I'm just telling you what the vehicle code section says.
that's not the interpretation that it has ever been used anywhere.
No? Have you ever been to court on it?
No.
So I told him, I don't know if there is a code specifically that says cyclists may ride two abreast, but I do know I'm a professional, I ride here all the time, and I know that it's not against the law to go side by side like he was saying.
Because vehicle code section is 21202.
I'm going to call my lawyer?
Oh, how about I just write you the citation? We'll go
No,
to
I
court
could
and you
call a
bring your
lawyer. He could explain it better than I could.
No, it's not necessary. We're going to cite today. I am simply quoting the vehicle code.
I know.
As I understand it, you have failed to give me any vehicle code contradicting that.
It's kind of a lot to expect.
California, you're cycling in California, you'd think you'd be familiar with that.
You realize you're just making up a rule telling me to refute it.
Well, you know, if you're so passionate about cycling, I would think that you would know. You're telling me all this stuff, how you're sponsored, you're so professional, yet you cannot give me the vehicle code section that supports what you're telling me, which is what I don't understand.
I'm not a professional, like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a person who, like, does a hiker know the codes for the trails that they're on and why?
Well, if they're gonna throw it out to,
Well, if a police officer slowed down next, let's just finish the ticket.
I have never actually written for this, so this is going to be very educational
so
for me
lucky.
when we go to court.
I'm so lucky.
Okay.
You're going to show up in court, right? You're not going to no-show.
Once again, see, that's my job. Just like
No, I understand.
to do vehicle
My job,
code
sadly,
equally.
yeah.
Yeah, I show up in court. You can just send your attorney, though.
What I stop myself from saying here is that it's my job to embarrass you for clicks on the internet. At all times, there is a 12-year-old with an authority problem inside me trying to get out, or in this case, get tased. But I was trying really hard to not be a dick. I'm still making a real effort here in this video.
Who makes your bike?
Is that going to be, you going to write that down?
Yeah.
It's a factor.
Factor?
Yeah. F-A-C-T-O-R.
Got it. Your copy, all the court information up here.
When I got home, the first thing I did was call Bike Legal to find out what I should have done, what law I was missing. He knew it right away. Number one, there's no law against riding two abreast in the state of California, right?
That's correct. The only law that could potentially apply would be riding on the right edge of the roadway if there's no bike lane, and more importantly, if the lane is wide enough for you and the vehicle to share.
So there are two codes in California that are pertinent to cyclists. One is the one that I was cited for. So that states that cyclists should be as far to the right as practicable. Now, practicable sounds like it's subjective and we could debate what that means, but it's even easier if you notice the exception about substandard road width. This road was just under 9 feet wide, and the most common car in America is the Ford F-150, which is 8.5 feet, meaning that it's impossible for someone to pass me within the 3-foot passing law in California. There's also an exception for road hazards, which this was after a storm, so the canyons were full of rocks and mudslides. The deputy even read that part out loud.
Avoiding hazards in the lane too narrow to share.
You need probably no less than 3 feet around you. The law says pass within 3 feet. There's nothing in there that says you have to ride to the right edge of the roadway. You can be anywhere in that lane. Because even if you were to ride on the right edge of the road, Phil, you have created a dangerous situation, and you're putting your life and your friend's life in peril by somebody thinking it's safe to pass when it's not.
Then there's a slow-moving vehicle code. Now that would require me to pull over in the next available safe turnout to let cars pass if there were 5 or more cars stuck behind me. As we mentioned, there were 0 cars stuck behind me, so obviously that law does not apply here.
If you were to have vehicles stack up behind you, you'd have to pull out when it was safe to do so, or pull over when it was safe to do so, and allow those vehicles to pass. But that wasn't the case.
And then after the Zoom chat, I called Mark right back to ask him, what do I wear to court? And he told me, wear something nice. And I'm glad I asked because I 100% would have worn my tights. So first was the arraignment. That was 2 months after the citation. For traffic court, you get there at 9 in the morning, you go through the airport security thing, you wait around, then they read your case, you plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest. And in some cases, you can ask for a reduced sentence if you go to traffic court. And finally, they set a court date. That was basically a whole day. Now, I have had jury duty, but this was the first time I saw this type of court in progress. Here I am on this crusade for my right to wear spandex on a Tuesday, and then there were real people with real problems. I'll tell you, I was pretty bummed out at the end. Here's a under 18 who was pulled over with the muffler being too loud, and it wasn't even his car, and he's speaking through a translator. He's Hispanic. There's a woman who her business's truck, the windows were tinted or covered or something, and it was her husband's business, and they're not together anymore, and she doesn't know where he is. People who can't afford to pay a $100 ticket, people who can't afford the points for their insurance, so they have to go to traffic school to get that waived. There's a homeless guy in there. It just seemed like a bunch of poor people who got tickets for being poor. So I felt like a real piece of shit. But ultimately, letting people get away with murder, as often happens when they deem the cyclist at fault, or even just stopping a cyclist on an empty road, is part of a bigger problem, which is very discouraging for me. So imagine what it does to people who might just be getting into riding. And it's not just people in tights. Bicycle laws are a way that police can go after homeless people or poor people who can't afford cars if they want to. I remember back in 2008, I got pulled over for having a taillight out. He gave me a ticket for that and my bike rack concealing my license plate. This was in Massachusetts. I think it was a crooked cop because he had my car towed, even though you could see my apartment from where it was. He didn't ask me if I wanted to get my car towed. He just called them. So I had to pay the tow company as well, probably a cousin of his. And I was so broke then. That was the first time I had to go to the Mount Washington Hill climb just because I knew I could win the prize money. Of course, I slept in my car in the parking lot. I realized sitting in traffic court that day, how many people in this country just never get out of that little cycle. It can be very time consuming and expensive to be broke. And there, but for the grace of God go I. I'm just super lucky to get to do what I do. So I try to tell myself there was more of a cause at stake than just my own here. I will say that in this case, the judge gave a lot of reduced fines, a lot of traffic court to save people from getting points on their insurance. They got to me, the judge was laughing. She'd never heard of that statute. She had to look it up. She kind of made a funny face about it. She asked if it was one of those twisty canyon roads. I said yes. She asked if I was on the side by the wall or if he'd wanted me to ride closer to the edge of a cliff. I told her it was the cliff side and she made a face again. I was hoping that it would just get dismissed at that moment, but we set a trial date. So far, we've just wasted a bunch of time. That's what we're doing. So next up was the trial, 2 months later. So that's 2 more months of stressing about this. I went back and measured the road. I had photos of the road debris. I had diagrams showing the width of the road, my butt, and cars to prove insubstantial road width. God bless Mark from Bike Legal who coached me what to expect and how to cross-examine the deputy.
You're going to get a chance to question the deputy. I would ask him, did you intend to stop me because we were riding 2 abreast? I would ask him, are you familiar with all the sections of Vehicle Code Section 21202? If you look at that section that we talked about, the exception, it doesn't say that you're not allowed, you have to be single file in that lane. He pulled up next to you on the motorcycle. He had room to pass. In fact, if we had 15 cyclists, all together, I think it would be safest for those 15 cyclists to be spread out all through that lane. So there's nowhere for the car to go. Right. Other than around them, when it's safe to do so. I
was going to start by asking him what practicable means. I have an English degree and I had to look that one up.
My suspicion, though, Philip, our betting man, is, happens so frequently, is I'm not even sure that the deputy would even show up.
I am so prepared. I'm so rehearsed for this. Honestly, I've been rehearsing for this for decades. So another e-bike ride to the courthouse, another security check, you wait in the lobby area, you wait in the courtroom, there's a roll call, and then the judge enters. Case number 1, officer isn't present, case dismissed. Case number 2, officer not present, case dismissed. There were 8 of those in a row, and then the same for me. So after all that, I didn't even get a chance to educate this officer like he promised he would.
Yeah, I show up in court.
So officer decided to not go to court today. Instead, I guess he was out there making the streets safer for motorists who want to text and drive instead of look where they're going and potentially kill people. Congratulations to me, I won. I don't feel victorious whatsoever. What have I won? I don't have to pay the ticket. I lost 2 days of my life going to court and back. Imagine if I was a person who had to take 2 days off work or couldn't afford to pay the ticket. Either way, it's going to cost you. So I won the case, but ultimately this was the punishment. And what's funny is since then, I told some friends about this and they were like, oh, officer, and a bunch of them had similar stories. He's always around here, actually yelled at a couple friends last week to ride single file, and buzzed me going downhill a couple days ago. By the way, it was Brian Safa and Taylor Dawson that he yelled at to go single file downhill. So national hill climb champion, not fast enough for you going uphill, and these guys not fast enough for you going downhill. I decided to bleep his name from this video because I'm going to see this guy again and I don't want to make it worse, but I did file a complaint and link below if you happen to have anything to share about this particular officer or any others. That might be the only way to get through here. I hope he sees this. I hope other law enforcement sees this. I hope they understand the laws and that it's not a cyclist's fault if we're hit from behind on a narrow road. I hope they focus their effort to keep us safe. I hope the public sees this. When you encounter a cyclist and we seem a little testy, some of them might be entitled jerks, I don't know. But most of us are just trying to not die out here. I feel vulnerable as hell sometimes. It's scary. So what's the takeaway? I'm relieved that it's over. That was surprisingly stressful. But I will say, don't be afraid to go to court. It's an educational American experience. Lesson for me is I'm glad I didn't listen to my parents and go to law school. I did not love that. And reminder that cyclists don't want to be in your way either, and we need more bike paths like these that took me almost all the way to the courthouse, and then we'd never be in this mess to begin with. Trust me, I don't want to be fighting with you guys over space either. And I am glad that I have friends with Bike Legal who are experts at this and were able to help me out. Give Bike Legal a follow, save their information. If you're ever involved in an accident, God forbid, they're available all over the country to help you out.